Hey guys, welcome back. So with continuing our coverage on the Immortal Thor, now that Thor also has the power of Zeus, he's deciding to make some changes. But some of these changes just might cause a problem, because there's some things going on in the background that are getting ready to catch him by surprise. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, this starts out with the Dr. Lamar making her way to a secret laboratory that's also been prepared for a ritual, which we'll see more about in a little bit, as well as what's going on with this guy that's with her. But as we're shown, this is meant to be a bit of a teaser for what's to come, and we'll talk more about what they're doing in a little bit. Though just keep in mind, for the time being, what we've seen thus far concerning the Wheel of Fate and the idea of change being a thing that needs to happen, because we're also told here, the wheel has turned, the wheel turns, the wheel readies to turn, which again leans into what this moment is building up towards. But again, we'll come back to that shortly, because next we gotta talk about Thor and this new power he just snatched up, because just prior to this we saw Thor absorb Zeus's power. But in addition to doing this, he's also absorbed the darkness that was in Zeus as well. So now it has Thor in a tug of war between it controlling him and him controlling it. And like we saw, this is something that Hercules noticed right away. But with it getting worse, he tells Thor that darkness is going to eat him alive. And he tells him he's got to let the power go. But Nyx steps in and tells Hercules doing that would be pointless, because if Thor releases the power, it's just going to go back to Zeus along with the darkness. And they're just going to be right back where they started. So next Hercules tells Nyx that she must do something. But she's just like, nah, because just moments ago, in the last issue, which was just moments ago for them, Hercules opened her eyes to the idea of this realm being a place where she can build her own universe. So now she just sees this Thor problem as if it's a lightning bug in a night the size of a universe. So from here, Nyx is just like, that's not my problem. So she dips out to form her new creation. And it leaves Hercules in a place where he's just like, okay, well, who's gonna pull the darkness out of Thor now? And what's interesting is that Loki tells Hercules Thor is his friend and Zeus is his father. So all this is much closer connected to him than he realizes. But Hercules ain't trying to hear that. So he gets ready to go off on Loki because he practically walked them into this predicament. But Athena gets him to cool down, while also letting Hercules know that he's passed his test already. Which once again sounds confusing to Hercules, because him and Athena are Greek. These aren't their runes, this isn't their magic, so he's still trying to make all of it make sense. But for us on the outside looking in, this is more so referring to what's coming for Hercules when the Wheel of Fate turns concerning him. And Loki's not able to tell him this directly, so he pretty much just warns Hercules not to let his rage lead him to his own destruction, like the primal beasts that couldn't use intelligence, which is why they're gone from the earth and it's ran by mortals. And just above them, even though Thor is going back and forth with this power, he heard what Loki said, and it hurt Loki as well. So for a moment here, Thor goes back and forth with it, because to him, this power and the darkness that's come with it, it's the beast in this analogy. So for a moment here, he's like, the beasts weren't all killed, they were tamed. And it's right there where Thor realizes what he must do, because this power is trying to tell him that gods bow to it and fate bows to it. But Thor's just like, nah, because he's like, I got this all power and you just happen to fall under all. And it tries to resist Thor for a moment, with it telling him things like, I will not be tamed. And this whole time, Hercules is down below watching, like, you know those people in the movie who be like, he's doing it. He's actually doing it. As the music builds up and it gets all dramatic. But it's right here where Thor comes up with an idea, because he remembers how Zeus held the power in his hand before, contained in a golden thunderbolt, and how his father Odin did the same with Mjolnir and many items in the past, much like what we saw a while back in God of Hammers. So Thor comes to the decision here where he's like, I'm gonna do the same thing. So he uses the power against itself to force it to his pattern, into a shape he associated with his strongest self. And thus was born the golden belt of Yoggjord, the enduring one, the protector, the second of three, which once again, if I had to guess, it's gonna make its way to Hercules at some point, or the second and third are gonna go between Hercules and Scourge. Who knows, because things are constantly changing. But after Thor's done using the power of Zeus to cage the power of Zeus, because he's inevitable, he next confronts Loki, because this wasn't the only dark power he's had to wrestle with lately, because aside from that, it's been magic. Rune magic, Scald magic, Loki's magic. And this time he feels like Loki's gone too far. because this test could have resulted in Thor becoming twice the monster that Zeus was. So he just ends up telling Loki, "I swore to trust you, Loki, even as my enemy, yet only as my enemy. More and more of thy schemes endanger others, and that I cannot allow. The All-Father must think of all." So of course, Loki, he sees where this is going. So he essentially gives Thor the same warning that he gave Hercules a moment ago, though in this case a bit more directly, because he tells Thor to think about what he's getting ready to do, and to make sure that it's not in haste or anger, because there's gonna be consequences. But Thor's just like, nah, I've decided. If Asgard needs a Skald, it must look elsewhere. By the All-Power, and by my will, I banish thee from the Golden Realm, and from my sight. And just to be clear, this is definitely Thor moving with haste and anger. But as soon as Thor did this, he felt a chill run through him, like the first touch of a cold winter. But he didn't bother to think much of it, because he just felt like Loki had done too much to be forgiven so quickly. And as it stands, Thor believes he has plenty of time to do without Loki until he changes his mind. So following this, Thor takes everyone back to Asgard, and upon their arrival, they're all greeted by Sif. So Thor tells her Hypnos and Athena will need lodging, and Zeus will need medical care, but Sif also lets him know that there's something here that requires the All-Father's attention, because an Asgardian has returned from far lands, and they want to speak with him in his hall. So Hercules asks Thor like, "Hey man, you want me to go with you?" And Thor's just like, nah, cause it's probably something dry and boring. But boy is he wrong twice over. Cause next he asks Sif, like, wait a minute, which Asgardian? Only for Thor to find out it's the Enchantress, who is anything but dry and boring. Cause just recently the Enchantress framed Thor for murder over on Midgard, and she admits to it right out the gate. Which for a minute this has Thor asking Sif, why did she let her in? Because Sif can see every soul in all the realms, it's not like she doesn't know. So she just tells Thor, you left no instruction not to. I know you two are fighting, as you do, but Amora is as much of Asgard as any of us. And the question of who belongs in the Golden Realm is not decided by your personal feelings. Or is it? Which right here has Thor making a face like, yep, I was definitely in my feelings when I banished Loki just a moment ago. But not long after Sif leaves, Thor tells Enchantress just to get to whatever it is she's here for. Because not too long before this, he used the All-Power, so he's ready to take an all-nap. Because soon he needs to go into the all-sleep. So from here, Amora tells him that things are precisely what Scourge told him before. Which from what Thor recalls is just Scourge asking him to hand over the hammer and the axe. Which now will likely also mean the belt too, so Scourge can save Thor from his tragic death which is approaching. And prior to this, we talked about the whole thing, with Odin dying and finally going to Valhalla after being trapped in the hammer, only to send Scourge back from Valhalla to save Thor. And I have the link down below to the playlist for anyone who needs to get caught up. But as it stands right now, Thor is just tired. He's tired of Odin stepping into his matters from beyond the grave, as if Thor is just a child. He's tired of Loki and his riddles, putting Thor through all these tests like a mouse in a maze. He's tired of his mother choosing his destiny before he was even born, as well as the others who are trying to decide his fate. Which right there is a bit of a diss to Amora, of course. So she just jumps into Thor's lap, telling him that she gives him her word, out of everyone who cares for him, which she still does, she will never try to save him from danger. And of course with Amora, there's a bit of playfulness and seriousness going on here. So of course Thor's like, oh, so we doing this dance. And Amora's like, well, we do know all the steps by heart. So he tells her to be careful before Sif comes barging in to save him from her ensorcelled kiss. So she's like, what kiss? So Thor kisses her. Because keep in mind, Thor has the Alvarez, but the two of them end up deciding not to take it any further from here. Even though for a moment they do entertain the idea of what could have been, perhaps in another world or another lifetime. But as it stands on this world, in this lifetime, she's done him most foul, framing him for murder on Midgard, his second home. So Enchantress points out that this is putting Roxxon, one of Thor's great enemies, on her leash. And not only as a favor, because she is tempted to use that monster on some of the Avengers. But Thor's just like, that's nothing that any of them can't handle. So next, Thor goes on to tell her that he just banished Loki for being a magical troublemaker of sorts. So right there, Amora's like, okay, then be consistent, All-Father. Banish me too. And I'm not going front. I was waiting on Thor to get up and be like, be gone. Thy playeth too much. I'm trying to get some sleep. But it doesn't quite play out that way. Because when Amora mentions that Thor should either banish her or imprison her, she asks him would that not be just? And this immediately has him thinking about Scourge. So he asks her, why did she help Scourge? Because for Scourge, on his end, his motive makes sense. He's already died for Thor before, so he doesn't want that death to be in vain. And even though it seems like Scourge is doing him wrong, he's trying to help Thor because he wants to save him. So Thor brings up what Amora just said, because he tells her, "You said you do not want to save me, and I believe you." Yet Scourge's actions followed your plan. So why that plan? You say that you care for me, and I do believe that as well. But there are those you care for more. Because now this finally boils down to the piece that's been missing this whole time. Because like I mentioned before, we already knew what was going on with Scourge. But for the Enchantress, it isn't until now where we find out the specific reason why she's trying to get back at Thor. Which in her case is because of the death of her son, Eric. Where in his case, as an Asgardian, Thor doesn't deny that there's a measure of Eric's blood on his hands. So Amora just tells Thor that she can lift her spell from Midgard and reveal to the mortals that they're mistaken about Thor being a murderer, but she's only going to do it for a price. And that price is restoring her son's life. So Thor more or less tells her that Asgard doesn't negotiate with terrorists, because the way he sees it, this is blackmail, and he's not going for it. And as far as he's concerned, he's not going to deny her son his just reward. He earned his place in Valhalla. So Amora's just like, okay, so now I just gotta do more to convince you. Duly noted. Which right there just lets us know that she ain't done doing him dirty. So next Thor just tells her, have we not already done enough to one another, Amora? Can we not leave things as they stand? So she asked him, would you, if it was your child? I will do what I must, but I do care for you, Thor. This was never about revenge. So Thor comes back saying, not for you or I perhaps, but you say that you hold Roxxon's leash, yet will not control its hunger. Be very sure then that Roxxon does not look hungrily upon thee. Which from here, this takes us back to the secret lab we saw before with Dr. Lamar and the other guy who came in with her, who was used in a sacrifice, which put his soul in a place that's not Valhalla. But we come to find out here, Dr. Lamar prepared a replacement body and carried out a blood sacrifice to bring back Dario Agger. And we're told here that this is him and not just some crazy clone situation. And really, the whole thing with Dario being able to come back because of the blood sacrifice, as far as that goes, I don't think it's anything new that's being thrown in here, because when he initially became the Minotaur at the age of 9, when pirates invaded his home on the island and killed his parents, the young Dario fled into a cave and prayed for death, power, and revenge the whole night through until his bones ached and his eyes bled. And then that next day when the pirates found him, his prayers were answered. So again, with the whole idea of Dario Agger coming back, I'm pretty sure that's nothing more than the blood pact he already made when he became the Minotaur. But in the case of this new body, which is an exact match to the previous one he had, which was just wrecked, but aside from that, we really don't know if he's using any of his science or resources to enhance himself beyond what he was before, with the exception of this Van Dyne suit that I believe just grows with him with his transformation. But yeah, after everything Dario Agger's been through the past few years, going against Weapon H, the Immortal Hulk, and now Immortal Thor, Dario's coming back now like, okay, I was killed by a god, so it's only right that I kill the gods. But I can't help but to think that Dario Agger has to have something extra up his sleeve after everything that's happened. But we'll see where that goes in a matter of time, because in the near future, with the Enchantress taking over Roxxon, it's likely that he's going after her first. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.